to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and my next guest is a queer multidisciplinary theater artist and filmmaker based in Baltimore, currently serving as an ensemble member, artistic associate, and community liaison for the Single Carrot Theater. Please welcome Tina Canady. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, this is going to be great. It's good to do the back end of we met in person. Usually it goes the opposite. Usually I'll do a podcast, not know someone, interview them, have them tell me their most inner thoughts. And then, hey, see you in person. You're like, oh, no, I shared too much. So it's the opposite now, right? We saw each other in person and now we're doing the interview. So that's good. So let's get right into it. I hit on those official titles, those official roles. Can you introduce yourself and give us those vital stats, give it that background, your creative interests, things of that sort?
Yeah, for sure. So I am a multidisciplinary storyteller. That's how I've kind of started to couple a few of the things that I do now. My background has mostly been in performance in theater. And now I've been branching out into filmmaking, which has been really exciting. And a little bit about me, I'm Baltimore born and raised. I was born in Sinai Hospital, actually. And I grew up in Baltimore County in Owings Mills. And I went to high school at Roland Park.
Okay.
And did a ton of musicals, plays there with them. Really developed a love of theater and performance with Roland Park. And then, towards the end of high school, realized that this was something that I could do professionally. Ended up auditioning for a couple of schools. I was really excited about going to New York, and going to the place where you make it happen and you kind of get to be on the Great White Way. So I ended up going to NYU, studying acting. Graduated from NYU, was in New York for one more year. And then I moved back to Baltimore because I got my first professional gig out of college here in the city. And for a while, I tried to do the commute, going back and forth, but paying that New York City rent did not make sense. So I finally decided to come back. And I've been back in Baltimore for the past 4 years.
That's great. I think I've romanticized about that idea of doing a commute. I was like, I can go back and forth. And one of the professors I know, he does that. He's in his 80s and he was doing that commute for a while. And I'm like, look, I look up to you. You're super smart and you like to blow the gas as well. So gang. And,
right.
And I was like, if you're doing it, I was like, I'm in my 30s. I was like, I might be able to make it happen. And I took one trip up there and I was like, nah, I don't want to do this. I was like, I don't think this is going to work. I don't think it's going to be a fit. I was like, we're remote right now. We're in a digital age, folks. So I read that most of your work had been in like the theater up until like 2021, and then your debut documentary, Breathing Black, premiered. What made you create the documentary? What kind of inspired that?
So we're deep into the pandemic. Yes. And I had been working with another company I work with called Submersive Productions, and we do a lot of immersive theater experiences. So I was working on a play that would happen in a window, and I was really interested in that, and it was something that I was really excited to develop. And then George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were murdered, and nothing else mattered. Like I felt like I needed to be out there. I needed to be protesting. I needed to be doing mutual aid. I needed to be out in the streets. And I took a step back from art making. And then I was in a deep time of being really sad and as I'm sure a lot of us were. And after being in a long period of being in therapy and trying to work through a lot of what was going on, my therapist kind of asked me, how do you replenish? How do you recenter yourself? How do you get back to joy? And I couldn't answer that question. I wasn't really making art. I wasn't doing a lot of things that brought me a lot of joy at the time. And I decided that I had something to say. I wanted to answer that question for myself. And I didn't have the tools that I usually use to answer those questions, which was the theater, because theaters were closed. We're in the middle of this pandemic. And I decided that it was film. I was like, I wanted to do a film about joy, about Black joy, about Black healing. And I basically decided to kind of take this leap of faith in a medium that I had never really had any experience in. But I really wanted to make something that I needed at that moment, something that I needed to remind myself that Black people were here, we're breathing, we're thriving, and we're joyous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes when you have a question that you don't have an answer to, that's at least something that is something you can follow up on. You can go through like, you know what? Like, for instance, let's say if something doesn't exist, you often hear about, man, this thing that I wanted didn't exist where I was at, so I made it. That's what I'm hearing there. And even going back, I go back to when we were here, right? With Freddie Gray, and I was doing therapy like concurrently, and I just remember it came up. My therapist was like a geeky, queer, like white dude, what have you. And we were just vibing on like having conversations about like Japanese mythology, all of these different things. Yeah. And then he'd ask me, he's like, as a 6'4" Black man, he's like, how is it for you? He's like, I don't know. As a white guy, I don't know how to ask. He's like, but I at least want to get an idea. Cause he's like, I can see there's a different energy on you. And I told him, I was walking here, I was walking to to his office, and I saw a police officer like getting out of his car, and I walked the opposite direction. And I was just like, yeah, that's run so counter, but it was just baked in. It wasn't like just a fear response, because I've felt those before, and they feel more intense. This was more of like, nah, you know what? I don't feel like dealing with this right now. It was kind of that. So he wanted to like really kind of understand that, and just to see if that was something that would come up in conversation, and it became like just kind of something we connected on, of just like trying to better understand that, because he's a tall guy as well as a big guy as well, but the difference is he's a white guy. And he's like, if we're both in the elevator, he's like, I feel like they are going to trust me, and then they're going to look at you like you've done something. He's like, we're kind of basically the same dimension. He's like, we're in the same setting right now. Right. So it was a really interesting time to talk, and hearing that part of what kind of motivated your project, your film, your documentary, it has like similar roots in that. That's big, because I think too often we run into this notion of it has to be Black trauma, it has to be some of these seedier things that's not fully realized. It's not a full dimensional like thing. Like there's a full spectrum of emotions that we can have. We don't talk about Black love as much. We don't talk about Black joy. We don't talk about Black resilience as much. But we always go back to, were you a slave at one point, or or like, wow,
Black pain.
Yeah, where's those guns coming from? Wow.
Right. What are you so happy about?
It's great to hear that you took that leap of faith and did something that it's like, I don't know, this medium, like you did something that was different. I like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. My mom, she's a therapist, so I literally am like, yo, therapists, like I just really appreciate the work that they do, and I'm like, I need to start paying my therapist royalties for this project, because without her, who knows?
So tell me about some of the lessons you may have learned through the process of going into being a director, and with regards to how specifically Black Baltimoreans heal.
I learned so much, this being my first time directing a film. From lessons in funding and timeline, I think that I learned a lot about having a lot more conversations with people you want to collaborate with and knowing their rates. This was something that I started the process very early, not really knowing where it was going to develop, if it was going to happen. And now looking back, I want to do it again. I want to have those conversations with my collaborators up front of, hey, this is my rate. This is how much, I want to say my work is worth, as opposed to later on in the fact of, hey, this is what I can offer you. Like, I want to be able to pay them exactly what they're worth and more. So moving forward, thinking about the funding and grants and all of the things that go into a budget. I wrote my first grant for this project. I had never written a grant before. That was a huge learning experience. And I learned so much and have a different perspective going into it now. I learned a lot about interviewing, the skill it takes to interview, what you do. It is such a skill. That was something I learned a lot about. How do I just have conversations with people? How do I make people feel comfortable? How do I also give my editor what they need to put everything back together? I learned a lot about just feeling comfortable interviewing people. And in terms of healing and how Black Baltimoreans heal, I can't speak for everyone because I only got to really sit down with 9 individuals specifically. Sure. But when the event happened, which was not only the film, but we had a breathing circle, we had interactive questions for people to do during the event, I'll say that I've seen that people just want to sit down and talk to each other. Like that's something that people, even myself, are really craving, like just sitting down, talking about Black joy, talking about narratives surrounding Black joy. People want to sit down, they want to laugh, they want to commune, they want to gather. That was a really big takeaway that I had from this process, was there was such a need for it. I mean, especially with the pandemic, that was something that was a driving force of people just want to sit down and have a conversation. So that was a really big thing that I took away.
Yeah, we're like, I have my own bias. Like sometimes people are much more clean and savvy about it. Sometimes I like to go raw with it. Black people like to socialize if we're keeping it real. And I think more macroly speaking, like humans are social creatures, but Black people, it's a different thing for us. And I think when it was restricted and I just can go by in a very small circle of, people that I'm around, family members and so on, and I'm fine with being insulated. I was like, I can do this and this kind of supplements it, right? Where I can get on there and I can chat with someone that feels like it's a conversation, but, family members like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I'm just stuck here. I can't get on the phone. Nah, I gotta be in person. I was like, what? And
right.
So yeah. And it's a coping thing. Like, my dad or my brother, they may have a certain thing that happens that they have to deal with and they're not really sure how to sort it. So it's like, let me call Robert real quick. I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone, but I do that because I know that's what's needed. And I think that's one of the lessons that I learned in that, in the, now we're in season 3 of the season 3 of the series of COVID, that's what they need. And it's like, I may not need it, but in that same way, but you give people what they need. And I think it's a conversation that it almost feels like this is the very beginning of that conversation of really sorting through, because generally speaking, I think a lot of Black folk don't really dive into mental health and how to be joyous and how to be well as much as maybe some of our counterparts. And that's a huge disservice. So with the work that you were doing in your documentary and the work that a lot of people are doing, it's like, let's move towards that. Let's move towards giving people what they need. And I looked at the onset of things that happened in 2021, 2020, and even a little bit now as we're recording this in 2022, that it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to kind of unplug from certain things. Like you have the, the Great Resignation. People are looking at these old systems like, these things don't work. We were kind of just blind and tapped out on it. No. Right. And I'll leave on this. I remember when the news around Breonna Taylor, the news around George Floyd popped up, and it was just out there, and I was just like, y'all couldn't even not saying like I'm not putting it past them. I was like, y'all do that. That's what y'all do. Y'all kill Black people. I know Black people. That's just what happens. I was like, a pandemic wouldn't even stop that. Come on, guys, y'all got to do better.
I know. Tell me about it.
And you try to make some satire out of it, but it's like, this is painful. You try to deflect. At least for me, I know one of my mechanisms is, how can I make this into a bit? And I just remember in one of the other podcasts that I did, I was just like, man, with all of these like white people getting up in arms, I feel like this is an opportunity for me to come up with like something that's just dog whistling to them, like patriotic ice cream or something, but it's just like terrible flavors. And then I'm using the funds to benefit things that they hate. Like, look, can I get some money to like some trans health advocacy or like like BLM? Yes. At the bottom of each cup, you just see Black Lives Matter hashtag on an ice cream. That's like, he's gotten us.
investing in it. Yeah.
And then that's when it just gets surreal. And that, see, like I said before, it's just somehow I'm going to get canceled just because it's a running bit for me. It's like, how can I have fun?
I love it.
So I read that you're, and this is great. I read that you're a brown belt in karate. Are there any aspects in practicing a martial art that can be applied to your creative practice or practices?
I love that you found this out. This is awesome. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we're getting deep. So absolutely. I think that studying martial arts, I did it from the age of 6 until like 17. So I did it for a long time. Karate definitely taught me discipline and work ethic. It was something that was expected of me to come in, learn my katas and my drills and go away and practice. And that to be kind of a solitary thing. Nobody was going to be over me being like, oh, are you going to do your pre-test or your test for your next belt or your next stripe? Like it really forced me to be the one to do the work outside of my classes. So it taught me a lot about discipline and kind of just being a self-starter, like doing that work by myself, not only just in the classroom or with my instructor. And then I also feel like it helped me really appreciate the power of feedback, like doing something, putting it out there, and then getting critique, getting feedback, and then going away, practicing, and coming back better. That's something that I really appreciate with art making is how do I kind of build up an armor to get that feedback and come back and be able to bounce back. You know, sometimes it can be hard to get some feedback or get critique. And it can really, it can sometimes be painful. But I think that because I've gotten so much critique in karate growing up, I was able to kind of build that armor and be able to come back and really appreciate getting feedback. So karate has really influenced a lot of parts of my art making.
It's always great to find, now granted, it has martial art in the more macro view of it, but it's always interesting to find like practices that may be dissimilar that kind of influence others. Like oh, karate is like, oh, it's making me a better in this area. And you know, I remember I always go back to this interview where it's a guy was like, I might listen to a guitarist to kind of his approach to playing the guitar to have a better understand how to be a visual artist. And I was just like, okay, that's something that really interests me. Like you're taking something that these have no similarities. I can't find one. And it's like, no, it makes me better. I was like, all right, cool. And I believe you might be the 5th martial art practitioner that's been on this podcast.
What's up? That's awesome.
Yeah. If you have the chance, go back and listen to Jerkworks this episode. My man Tony. Okay. He's a chef. He's a dope chef. Does jerk chicken, all of this good stuff. And I believe he might be a brown belt as well in karate.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I was like, do you use it in the kitchen? He's like, sometimes you have to. I was like, all right, man.
Cut those, cut it up my hands.
Right. Like, where are those bricks at? So in a more macro sense, right? Because you've shifted or you're shifting to have more of an interest because you touched on you want to maybe do another documentary, right? And so what is your overall vision for your work as it's like moving in maybe a film direction?
So I'm really interested in documentaries. Specifically, I've always loved the idea with the next documentary I'm thinking about is like really uplifting and highlighting aspects of specifically Black history that haven't gotten the light shed on them that I think they deserve. I'm really interested in that, specifically when it comes to like Black history. And I feel really passionate about also creating narrative films. I'm kind of starting to work on creating my first feature that I'm going to write. And so I'm really interested in kind of possibly retelling stories we think we know, or just learning things that are new. I'm really feeling excited about, documentaries, telling new stories. And another aspect that I'm really interested in, specifically when it comes to filmmaking, is exploring work culture like, and the people we work with, and all the relationships and subtleties that come out of that. So I'm really excited in those areas. And then I have a love for horror. I'm a big horror, thriller, psychological thriller fan. So I'm over here trying to make some scary movies too. So it feels like there's a lot I want to explore. I
dig it. We'll be having another conversation because I have several ideas that I've just been sitting on, and I would imagine kind of maybe what you kind of experienced of like, how do you get started on some of these things and being able to find the easiest path, being that the prospect of even doing it, the proposition of doing it, doing a film, doing whatever is inherently not easy. But it's like, how can I simplify this uneasy thing and make it programmable, make it something I can replicate? And I've got documentary ideas. I've got like short stories. I have this one idea it's almost like, can we make Atlanta but in Baltimore? Because I feel like we don't really touch on the weirdness that is Baltimore.
Yes. Yeah, we need to talk because I'm ready. I'm ready to kind of, bounce back ideas, and I'm ready to make it happen.
Okay, then we this is a postscript. Y'all didn't hear any of that what I just said. So I got a few more real questions before I get into the really, really, really interesting rapid fire questions. Is there a particular show that you've worked on that you consider your favorite, and why?
Oh, this dreaded question. I have an answer, but this question was so difficult because there's just so many great ones. But I have to say that a show that I loved and learned so much from was a show I actually just did at Arena Players in Baltimore. I just finished doing a play called Day of Absence by Douglas Turner Ward. And it's a satire, and it's about an imaginary Southern town where all the Black people have suddenly disappeared. And the only ones that are left that are in hospitals, and they're, won't wake up because they're, ailing. So infants are crying because they're being, attended to by strange parents. And basically the mayor calls the president of the NAACP being like, where are the Black people? You got to send the Black people back to us. And it's fantastical. It's comical. And the whole catch is the whole play is done with Black actors in whiteface. So it's a play on. Yes, Rob, yes. So this was a hilarious play because it was painfully true. I mean, it was a satire. So there was so much in there that was just hysterical. At one point, they're actually, the white people in the town are freaking out because they noticed that people who had been passing are missing as well. So they're like freaking out and being like, oh my gosh, they were infiltrating our town. I can't believe this is happening. So for me to put on whiteface, to put on a blonde wig, to kind of try to embody a white Southern woman, it blew my mind. It was the most challenging experience. And I grew and I learned so much because I don't usually do comedies, and I wanted to push myself to do a comedy, and I learned a lot. And then I'll also say it taught me a lot about kind of, again, looking at Black history, looking at putting ourselves within a context, because this play was written in 1965 when Black people are struggling for a lot of civil rights. And I feel like our director really gave us a lot of the background, the setting of when this play was written, while keeping that on our backs while we were performing, remembering what this was written for, when this was written, what they were trying to communicate. It was a ton of fun. It was really funny, but it had a really deep history. Mm-hmm. And I've never been in a play and worked with a director that really communicated that so clearly to me. He had us watch things like Gone with the Wind to make sure that, like, I had never seen that before. I was so opposed to watching that for so long. And he was like, that's part of our history. We have to see ourselves functioning in history, seeing the way that Black people had to function in the overall growth of our nation. It was something that I grew so much from that experience. And Arena Players and the work that they do, I have nothing but respect for all the folks over there. So it was an amazing play. That's
great. I can almost hear like dialogue, like, what are we going to do? We don't have any dances to take from TikTok and all of this different. We have no culture to ape and friggin' like cannibalize and vulture.
Right.
I just feel like that's the
Literally.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
Literally. That was literally how it went.
So let's talk about hidden meanings real quick. Aside from your work, do with regard to the work that you enjoy, right? So
Mhm.
things that you're into, whether it be like film, movie, whatever, right? Do you prefer the messages in it to be more concealed, vague, or let's just out there overt? Like, look, there's no this is what I mean. I said what I said. Which do you prefer when you're kind of consuming content, consuming media?
When I think about the work that I really enjoy, I'm going to throw out some names. I love all of Jordan Peele's work. I love Mike Flanagan, specifically talking about, he did Blind Manor, Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
Again, more horror stuff.
Uh-huh.
I love looking for those, as Jordan Peele, I've heard him kind of say those Easter eggs of like looking for certain connections, certain meanings, certain things you want us to take away. Like I'm that person that's looking up, the reviews, looking up, watching the director talking about the film and trying to figure it out. I love that. Like I just love creating things and watching things that sparks conversation and gets people kind of trying to figure out certain things. So I think that those are the kind of things that I like, especially in the work that I'm kind of consuming. But I don't want to be in a place where like I'm questioning if you're for me. Like I've seen work where I've been like, all right, yeah, cool. Like I see the message that you're trying to, get for us. Or I've seen work where I'm questioning like, I don't know about this. Like, was this made for me? Like, I don't really know who this was made for. Like, I'm feeling a little weird. So I don't, I don't ever want people to question, who I'm writing for. But I do like to kind of have things where I'm kind of looking for certain connections.
I dig that, and I like that. I'm a horror fan. I got the Shutter account. I'm getting busy, right?
Yeah.
And I might do a movie review podcast that you might want to have a listen to because it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I might have to have you on an episode or so. We'll talk about
Oh my gosh, yes. Love
but
that.
yeah, I kind of look for those same things, and I like to question it of when I'm watching something, when I'm consuming media. It's like, all right, I guess this is, I get the point, but it may not necessarily be for me. Or, all right, this is a bit much, guys. Like, I go to that. Did you watch Horror Noir, the mini series, not necessarily the documentary?
No, I didn't see that.
You should check it out because it is so on the nose at times. It's literally, there is a racist blanket killing black people in like Atlanta.
What? Oh my gosh.
It descends into comedy. Like literally there's some bald Nazi guy in the artist's bed and he's like 5'6" or something. He's like, I'm bringing the devil here. And I was like, what is this movie? It was on Shudder. It was on Shudder. And I giggled for like 3 hours. I was like, hold up. I was like, look, I get it, but also this is not executed well.
It's just a lot.
It's like, all right. But when I told people about it, I was like, yo, there's a movie with the racist blankets that are killing street artists. I was like, I'm just letting you guys know.
Just so you know up front.
It's like, look, I hope you enjoy it. It was like one of those instances where I think the person was maybe a little too overt with it. It gave me that vibe of this. Certain concessions were made. That's what I felt about it at the end of the day. But I feel like the filmmakers like, look, I don't care. I'm going to make whatever concessions you want me to cast, whoever. I'll tell you one thing though, this is going to be in it. I'm going to have racist blankets.
Racist blankets. Like, oh my gosh. What an idea.
The last real question I have is this one. Describe a time where someone gave you that shot that really kind of helped you, whether it be in your theater, your performance side of your career, your work, or your film side, and doing a documentary, because that's something that was very much a you thing. Like, look, I need to make this happen. How we gonna do this?
Right. You're right. I definitely have to say that the company I work with, Submersive Productions, the artistic directors, literally from conception of the idea, have been so supportive. When I thought about Breathing Black, this was something I had never done before. They believed in it. They they helped me write that first grant, specifically Ursula, who is one of the artistic directors. She helped me write the grant, gave me feedback with the grant. And I was so afraid of kind of stepping through the directing door and kind of, like you said, it being me, this being my idea, this being, you know, the person who's going to be out in the front talking about it. And to receive that support and that belief throughout the entire process helped my career so much, because ultimately it changed the way I thought about myself. It changed my ideas about what I was capable of achieving. And it changed what my aspirations were, because now I feel like sky's the limit. I want to do more films. I feel really excited about filmmaking. And I think that is the most powerful thing that's helped my career, is changing the way I think about me.
It's huge. That's huge. I like, as you're talking, and I'm just hearing, I was like, there are more similarities than I would care to admit between how you're describing how things have worked for you and how you kind of see things and the way that I kind of approach things. It's like, give me that one. Once I have that first one under my belt, then I have the confidence to go on, as I was saying. But before we got started, I was like, yeah, I'm ready for the next movie one. First one, my head's going to explode. The next one, I was like, yo, let's get it. It's a big wave here. It's
yes,
like,
yes.
You know, that's my chorus,
yeah,
Alias. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. I love it.
So that's the end of the real questions. And now I'm going to hit you with, I got four rapid fire questions. And
here we go.
These are however brief you can answer these. That's what we're looking for. Because some people are like, look, I need to explain why I like Raging Bull. It's my favorite movie, and I don't want to be judged. It's like, no one's judging. You know what it is. All right.
Right.
First one. Can you name 2 hobbies that you have outside of your work in theater and outside of filmmaking? Like, what other things take up your time?
Traveling and reading.
Where do you like to travel? This is not one of the rapid fire questions, by the way. I'm just interested.
Oh my gosh, I love traveling so much. My favorite place I've ever been is Amsterdam. So I loved Amsterdam. I want to go to Africa. That's somewhere I really want to go.
Nice. What's the last song that you listened to?
Ooh, the last song I listened to was Essence by Thames. I forget who it's by. It's called Essence though, and I know one of the versions of the song has Justin Bieber featured on it. Okay.
I read that you're a drummer. Do you have a favorite drummer? Like, who comes to mind? You're like, yeah, you know, I really get loose on Lars Ulrich. That's not a good one, but you know what I mean. Like, who's your favorite drummer?
Oh my gosh, I love this is coming up. Gosh, there's so many good drummers. Who is my favorite drummer? Gosh, I feel bad because who's my favorite drummer? I love the Roots, and so I feel bad that I'm blanking on the drummer for the Roots.
Oh, Questlove?
Questlove, yes, yeah. I love Questlove, and I love all his work. So Quest, yes.
He and I share a birthday, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wait, when's your birthday?
January 20th.
What's up, Aquarius?
Gang, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I knew I was getting something. I was like, what's happening here?
Yes, Aquarius for life.
So I got two more. Describe the last text that you sent.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I heard this from a Jonathan Groff interview, and I was like, all right, I want to see if people actually do the real thing, because he was like, well, let me check.
I know, I'm really like, actually, can I go look? Because I'm like, I actually want to answer this. So, oh my gosh. All right, so the last text I sent, I went on a walk today with my friend. Yeah. So I literally said, so nice seeing you for a walk, heart. That was the last text I sent.
That's a nice message. Mine was like, yo, can I get like an extra like slice of cheese on that? No. Just me ordering food. Everything is just some version of me getting food or receiving food or thanking someone for food. It's always food related. All right. This is the last one. What is your hottest take? It could be anything. It's like, look, man, this movie is buns because of X, Y, Z. What is your hottest take?
I gotta This is just the first one that popped into my head. KFC is not good, y'all. It's not good. It's not good. Popeyes is way better. I don't care what anybody says.
Don't at me.
I'm like, I don't like KFC. Not good.
I'll throw this one to you because my partner turned it into, she was like, oh, you're in a contrarian spiral. I was like, what do you mean? And that became the name of my LLC, Contrarian Aquarian. But literally, one of my good friends, he got premiere tickets to A Star Is Born, and I kept talking about how much I hate Bradley Cooper. So she's like, huh, you hate Bradley Cooper, but you got tickets to the premiere of the movie that he's singing, directing, and you got a little misty when his character dies? She's like, how'd you cope with that? How'd you deal with that contrarian spiral that you were on there, Aquarian? I was like, oh, huh. She's like, huh, you had that guitar pick that they gave us too, that commemorative one with his signature on it. I was like, look. And then I watched Nightmare Alley yesterday, and she was like, so again, Bradley's back, I see.
You got me.
I was like, look, you know what? I was going to pull out and I'm just going to watch this movie. You need any wine? Like, what are we doing?
Just one.
So that's all of the questions that I had, and this has been a lot of fun. I want to invite you to share where to find folks can check you out, follow you, check out your happenings that are coming forth.
For sure. You can follow me at my sweet tea, my underscore tea underscore or sweet underscore tea, and tea has 2 A's in it. To keep up with me on Instagram, I have a website, tinacandy.com. Which will have just more information about more screenings of my documentary, Breathing Black. We're hoping to have more public screenings for people to see because a lot of people couldn't join us for the premiere in December. And then you can keep an eye out for me performing with Single Carrot and Submersive Productions. I have a show with Single Carrot that's coming out in June. So you can keep an eye out for that.
So there you have it, folks. I want to thank Tina Canady for coming on to the podcast. And I'll say that there's art in and around your city. You just got to look for it.